Hey folks, this will be my first video of 2023, and it's an update on my 43-gallon cube back here. This does have a site or Sicce label on it, but I got it from 7 Ports, and the link for this tank will be included in the description down below. But before we get started with the update, I just wanted to kind of address a few things. One, thank you so much for all of you that reached out to me in emails and Facebook and other places and were like, where's the videos? We miss you. Don't worry, I'll be back real soon. I do appreciate you reaching out, and I just kind of needed to take some time to sort of reevaluate some things. Also, I've got another channel. It's Pecktec Games. If you like board games at all, please come check it out. That channel is getting kind of close to the point where it could be monetized at one day, and then I could make videos for both channels that actually generate some sort of income. Those videos are so much easier to do than like the project-oriented videos that I traditionally do on here. So I've been knocking those out with a couple of friends and just sort of developing the content there. And I explored that a lot in January. Kerrigan has just graduated college and already has a job. She's officially a music teacher at an elementary school, and we're very proud of her. Another thing I'd like to do is more visits, more sort of documentary styles, sort of in line with Rob and his Amazing Beasts or Cassandra and all of her live food. I want to do more visits and things like that this year, and do sort of more documentary style videos and not just these kind of throwaway videos that you see so much. In fact, I always sort of had that as a goal with my videos, but I guess some of them have been better than others. I do have videos that seem to just kind of endure and live on and are still popular years and years after I make them. And my hair always is terrible. So if you ever see me come on with bad hair, that probably means it's going to be an outstanding video that people will cherish for years to come. So one more thing before we get into this. If you decide, oh man, that's a neat tank, I'd really like to see how you set that up. Those videos are all out there. In fact, there'll be a playlist that's just for this tank and any updates I do specifically about it. I don't think there's been a lot of specific updates for this. I skipped its 1-year update, and I'm about to explain that. But I do an all aquarium update. If you ever have any questions about any of my projects and where they go, you can follow that playlist and see, like in a more holistic sense, all the things that I do moving through the years. I usually put a little bit more work into my all aquarium updates. Some of them have been extremely popular because they kind of slip through the algorithm somehow, and others have been less so. But they always contain an update on every single project that I have going. So one other thing before we dive into that, if you do go back and look at those videos, I built this tank literally, like I think the substrate video where I describe, or the hardscape video for this, when it comes out, literally came out the day after my father passed away. And in fact, today is the anniversary of the weekend where we last saw him alive. He was taken too soon. It was slow. It was painful. It's not pleasant to think about. The person you see in those videos, especially the final video for the setup of this tank, is an extremely broken person that still has not recovered. In fact, you can see a sharp decline in my content, and it could be part the COVID lockdown and returning to work, or part just the depression and any number of other things. But yeah, I'm still working through it. I don't want to start this off on a big downer, but I did think that was kind of important to point out because this tank is hard to talk about. Making a video today is hard to do. You know, ultimately in life, it doesn't matter if you're really happy about something or not happy about something. You're going to endure it, and how you endure it is how successful you'll be. So with all that out of the way, and I'm sorry, that was probably a lot, but let's get down a little closer to this tank and really take a look at what's going on. Okay, so here we have the 43-gallon. This has low iron glass, so it's got very, very good clarity, very little green inside of this glass. If you look at a glass long ways and see a bunch of green in there, This is made, that's partly the iron content inside of it. This is made to have a lot less of that and make it very, very clear. Especially with these higher end tanks, I only scrape the glass with like credit cards, or I primarily scrape the glass with credit cards or other plastic cards. It is a really great little secret to always keep from scratching up your glass and stuff. I wish I'd done that more in the 210, especially. I got a little aggressive with some other ones and have caused scratches. In fact, I've done that in a lot of my tanks, but lately I really try to be very careful, and especially even with that though, you have to be real careful towards the bottom so you don't like pull up debris and scratch the glass. But I love this low iron glass. It really, I think it really helps as far as like getting the true colors of your fish and plants and stuff like that. The aquascape in here, if you can call it that, is become jungle style. That happens a lot with me. I have forgone trimming on this perhaps a bit too long, and the Anubias in the middle has completely overtaken the tank. It's really thick and dark inside of here. In fact, I've got my light on my camera turned way down so it'll balance out and we can really have a good look in here. This tank had a fairly interesting sort of 7 layers of substrate and different things going on. This is another tank where I tried to implement anoxic filtration. That's something that Dr. Novak preaches about quite a lot. I made this tank because the 20-gallon tank that I'd made had done really, really well. I've just done a couple of updates for it too. It continues to be a really good low maintenance tank, and I wanted to try it out in kind of a different format. I would say this tank is actually the most successful because I've gotten plants to grow very, very well as implemented the under gravel filter and kind of combined it with a canister filter. There's a very particular way to do this, and I highly recommend you check out that video to see what I did here because it seems to have worked really well. So even with the under gravel filters and stuff in here, there's quite a lot of substrate, maybe even a little bit more than I would typically use. So in some ways I'm using a deep substrate method as well. Or maybe I've just provided enough of it that the plants have a lot of room to grow. A brief aside about anoxic filtration. I did a brief interview, well, not brief, it was about an hour long of Dr. Novak explaining this in detail. I'm not a scientist, and some of the critics that I've seen of his work or say, well, he's not presenting his scientific papers. And you know, what's funny is I never really thought to ask because, frankly, I don't know if I could read them. I don't find reading things like that super interesting, at least enough to really try to comprehend, you know, exactly what they mean when it's broken. In other words, I prefer things in the layman's terms, something a bit more relatable and easy to understand. And I took a lot of what he said at face value. So maybe those of you that are scientists or maybe just concerned parties or people on the internet that feel like they're just really clever, they like to give me a hard time about it, and I don't mind that. Everyone's entitled to your opinion. You can absolutely put me, you know, grill me all you want. What I have here is an example of it working great. And the other thing I have is a lot of anecdotal evidence from my followers and my viewers. Many, many hundreds and hundreds, I'm not exaggerating, of comments about how this particular type of system worked for them. Maybe they didn't implement it the same way. I don't watch a lot of other people's videos on this stuff, and I probably should, but everything I did here was just kind of like, oh, I wonder if this would work. And it sort of took the principles that I learned from Dr. Novak and sort of applied my own, like, well, I still want to use my canister filter, but I don't feel like filling it all the way up with cat litter. You can see I'm still like 1 foot in, 1 foot out on some of this stuff. So I try to use things in sort of a combo effect. So I'm using the canister filter as it's intended, but I'm also incorporating an under gravel filter with a very slow draw. So it just kind of doesn't pull real hard on there. but does move the water through to some degree. So this does have CO2. It's currently off right now. I've run out of gas, and I have another tank upstairs, and it is almost out of gas, and I feel like any day now it's going to run empty, and I'll take them both at the same time and get it refilled. You can have little gaps in CO2 without causing a lot of problems, and really this is so overgrown right now. I don't feel like it's helping me a lot. I do think it helps me some with the buse. This tank has a lot of buse, particularly in the front section right here, and little smatterings here and there around the periphery. The other plants I have in here is four-leaf clover. I've got some sort of version of Java fern that's just really huge, like really huge leaves, especially when the CO2 is going. And people tell you all the time that with Java fern you don't need CO2 and it's not fine. But if you see like a mono tank or something like that, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the most amazing Java fern I've ever seen. It's the CO2. It really reacts differently. In fact, I grow leaves in here that are like, I mean, they're enormous. They're enormous leaves, and then you'll see like another whole plant coming off the top of it. The kind of growth I don't see when there's not CO2 in here. So CO2 and Java fern are best friends. The other plant in here is a Nubius. I believe the majority of what you see here is Coprophylla. It's the biggest leaf version of Anubias that I have in my tanks. I'm sure there's a bunch of varieties. Like over the years, I've gotten like Golden Coin and all these different ones. And every now and then I'll see a leaf and I'm like, wow, that looks a little different than the other ones. But I've long forgotten. I mean, I'm more than a decade on YouTube building aquariums and putting plants in different things. And I've forgotten where all of those different varieties have gotten to. I've got a couple of other sort of miscellaneous stem plants that I've kind of jammed in the corners. I think I initially had some sword plants in here that I just had to pull out. They didn't seem to like it in there very much. So a couple of things that changed since the setup of this tank, equipment-wise. One, the Fluval UV filter. It doesn't seem to work anymore. I think it died after about a year or so. It just like the little control panel stopped lighting up. And this canister filter, the Biomaster, has done great, except it did leak on me once. Like it had a small little drip leak after I changed out this right here. There seemed to be sort of a small drip leak in here, and that's why it's in its timeout bucket. I couldn't find a smaller little place to put it, but I put it in a little timeout bucket just in case. Something about this stand, and I think in the original video I might have a link to where you could buy one of these stands, but this stand held that water, so I didn't see any leaks or anything for about 2 days. I thought I had a massive evaporation because I'd lost maybe an inch or so of water off the top. But then I got in here and looked, and it was like it was about halfway up. It's about this far full of water in here because of a gentle leak, and it wasn't out of this part either. It was like out of the corner back in the back. So I'm not sure what happened there. I pulled this thing apart. I straightened it up the best I could. I was sure to moisten that seal around the top, and I kind of put it back. And I've been using it for 2 months, and I haven't had any problem. And I never had any problem prior to that either. So I'll chalk that up as just kind of an anomaly. It's not something to be deeply concerned about, but that is why I've got it this way. The other thing that I removed was I had a wave maker in here too. I took all of that out. I had plenty of current. This thing's actually very strong. I've let this go for so long because I'm about to redo the 210, and I'm gonna need stuff to put in here. So the 210 is the 210's going okay. There'll be an update just for it, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But this has some really good, healthy plants, and I'm gonna have to probably cut this at about half to have more stuff to put in there. The plan is to plant the 210 as deeply as I can, like put as many plants in there as I can and really try to absorb the nutrients that are created by the many fish that I have in there. We've got a number of different fish. We've got some platies that I've got from the local aquarium club. So every month we go to the aquarium club and we trade either fish or pets or sometimes chemicals, dechlorinator and other things. There's usually a table and we draw names, and instead of like winning things, you get to pick first from a bunch of donations from other club members. It's pretty awesome, and I think it keeps people coming back. It's a great idea. Those club members are where I'm sourcing a lot of my videos from this year. I'm going to be visiting. You're going to meet a lot of people in my town who are willing to have me over, and that's a few people. Another fish that I have in here that I'm very fond of is the dwarf rainbow fish. They are really, really beautiful. I had quite a few to start with, and I lost a couple. And then someone from work brought me, broke down their tank and brought me in theirs, along with a bunch of Coreodoras and what else do I have in here? I've got some white clouds. This basically became the refugee tank for a lot of his little fish. I've got some Von Rio tetras. I've got some endlers. I've got longfin striped danios in here. I've got one bristlenose pleco, a little baby bristlenose pleco. I've got my oldest Amano shrimp in here. I've got an Amano shrimp in here that's almost a decade old. It's been tough to even keep track of it. It's been around so long that it is enormous, and a female. Got a whole bunch of autocinklus and a whole bunch of babies that are probably endlers, maybe platies. I'm not sure yet. This tank gets one pinch of food during the day. The rest of the time, these guys run around and eat other things there. There's not one stitch of hair algae in this tank, thank goodness. I love that. That is my favorite when that happens. Hair algae is the worst algae for me. I hate it. I hate it. It's hard to deal with. Sometimes it feels like you can't recover. In fact, in my tank upstairs, my no-filter aquarium that was absolutely covered in algae, I've just filled it full of algae eaters and said, okay, go. They've already cleared out quite a bit, and it'll be interesting to see kind of long-term how that goes. Of course, they're only intended to be in there for a short time, and many of them will outgrow that tank, but I threw a bunch in there just to see what happens, see if they could clear it out on their own. I had a little bit of a tough time with this at the beginning. I believe there was a 4-month update. I haven't watched it. It'd be interesting to see how I felt about it then. I do know I had some problems in the beginning, but I reined those in, and now it's working great. It's almost no maintenance. I mean, I do my water changes. I feed the fish. Occasionally clean the glass. I don't have to do it a whole lot, but even if it looks clean, you should give it a little scrape, at least once a month. But it never looks like really terrible, like I want to do it because I'm embarrassed. I guess that's another weird kind of benchmark. As far as water changes, I do about one water change a month on here now. I take about 20 or 30% of the water out, and then I replace it directly with dechlorinated water. Well, I put the water in directly and add dechlorinator. I let it sit there for a few minutes, and then I turn on the pumps, and that's what I do. I do not scrape, no gravel vacuuming along the bottom or anything like that. Not a lot of trimming, especially lately. If I do give plants to someone, or someone says, hey, will you give me a plant? A lot of times I'll go to here because it's easy enough to clip off a piece. And that's sort of why I've gotten, like when you look directly in here, it's a little disjointed and unkept and stuff. And some people really like that, but part of the reason is things are just kind of growing everywhere because I've just gone in and arbitrarily trimmed something to give for a gift. And looking more at how it looks like when I cut it off than how it looks in the tank, because it's going to grow back. I would be honored to answer any questions that you have about this tank. Feel free to leave them down below. I really appreciate your time. I'm going on a road trip tomorrow morning to see Rob from Flips Aquatics. I met Rob for the first time at the Aquatic Experience, and that was a long time ago when he first started his channel, and I just noticed that his channel is up over 100,000 subscribers. That is amazing, Rob. Congratulations. In fact, he's like 110,000 or something like that. He got there a while ago, and I've been too head in the sand to even notice. I'm going over to see his facility. He raises shrimp and lots of fish and stuff. He's just moved into a new place. I saw he's got a brand new baby and stuff too, so he hasn't been posting a whole lot this month. I hope he's doing okay. But we're going to go see him. I'm going to do this sort of documentary style, just like we talked about a little earlier in the video. And take a look. I'll see you then. Until next time, follow your bliss. Keep a clean tank. and a clean mind. I'll see you soon. Bye. Oh, almost fell. Also in this tank, I've got some Von Rio tetras. Are those Von Rio tetras?